let's learn about the Python data types, all the options we have in Python. Now we're back to our REPL.it, so we can write some Python code. We see over here that we're using Python version 3.6. That's great. Let's minimize this and start writing our first Python code. Now we're going to talk about data types. And Python has several available to us. Now I'm going to list them out for you, and then we're going to talk about each one individually. First, we have something called int. And you see right away when I type, I have the REPL already give me hint, and it's highlighting it. If I hover over it, it shows me that int stands for integer. We also have something called float. We have bool, which stands for boolean. We have str, which stands for string, list, tuple, set, and dict. Now, what are these? These are data types, right? A data type is a value in Python. So you can think of it as exactly that, values. So int would represent all numbers, for example. String will represent all letters, for example. And a program is simply instructions that tell a computer what to do. And what does that mean? It's all about storing information, or a data type, and modifying that information. We're taking actions on these data types. So the two crucial steps when learning a programming language is that, well, we have these data types that we need to understand that exist in a language, and then we need to learn how we can manipulate the data, create, store, read, change, remove this data from the machine. Now, these data types are called the fundamental data types in Python. They are the core to the language. Now, after the fundamental data types, we also have something called classes. So beyond these data types, we can actually create our own using something called classes. So these will be custom types. Again, something that we'll learn about. So I can create a class that I can name whatever I want. For example, supercar. Now that doesn't exist, but I can create it, and we'll explore how to do that in the course. Now, besides the fundamental data types, the classes, which will be our own custom types, we also have something called specialized data types. And these specialized data types, they're not built into Python, but they're special packages and modules that we can use from libraries. Now, again, this is a topic that we'll cover later, but these are, you can think of it as extra boosts. Whenever we don't have a data type that we want in the standard Python package, and maybe we don't want to create our own custom types, there are specialized data types that we can use from what we call modules. So you can think of it as extensions that we can add to the language. Again, something that we'll talk about later on in the course. And then finally, there's another type that is a little special called none. And none, as you can see, it's being highlighted, which means it means something in the language. None, as the name suggests, means nothing. It's kind of like the idea of zero in math. It's the absence of value. It's simply nothing. And you'll see why this is important in programming later on. So these are our data types that we're going to talk and we're going to use in our language. Now we're going to start with the fundamental data types, which are nice and simple for us to get through. So let's start one by one. And you know what? Let's start with these two for now. First are the terms of that language. Sometimes a programming language has different words and different definitions for these words that you're going to have to memorize. Things like statements, variables, instantiation. Really complicated sounding words, but you need to understand what they mean so that you can talk to other programmers. You also need to learn about a language's data type. That is, what sort of data can a program hold? You can think of it as values. Just like in real life, we have different ways to represent values, like numbers, letters, and symbols. In programming, we have these data types to store information. And each programming language has different sort of data types. Next, we need to learn about actions. At the end of the day, all programming is a way for us to tell our machines, hey, store this data and then retrieve this data and perform some action on it. That's all it is, just using memory and performing some actions. So we're going to learn how to perform those actions. And then finally, we have to learn the best practices of each language. There's good ways of writing Python code, and then there's bad ways. So that when we build our applications, our programs, well, we don't have a leaning tower like this, but we have a solid structure and a solid program. So throughout the course, we're going to learn about these things, but keep this in mind. These 4 things are what you need to become a good programmer.